they carry. Here are the habits they have. Here's the mindset they have. And the sixth one, here's the chip on the shoulder that they carry. It's like I have a Mount Everest sized chip for who I am, but it's because I show up and I have these consistent things, right? But it's all a woven together aspect of what's called my ideal identity. I architected it. I know who I am, and I'm always re-architecting the next one. But then we get to the stretch portion, and here's where the magic happens. For a lot of people, you think about physically. Like if I go and I want to go run a marathon, right? What do? I stretch. Now in the stretching, like it's painful. Like I gotta lean and I gotta do this and a muscle hurts and like I just lean. But some people, they feel it and they go, oh no, I'm not doing that. Then they go for a run, they pull a muscle, they're out of the sideline for about a month, right? They gotta figure out how to get back to healthy. The same thing happens for life, right? Because that stretch creates a longer, stronger, more endurance-based like muscle. In life, the stretch comes from those actions you have to take that just don't feel like they're you. The imposter syndrome, the difficult, aspect of getting up early in the morning and changing a habit there, having to eat healthy, catching the workout, making those cold calls you don't want to make, having a hard conversation with your staff and your spouse. And those are the things that stretch you. But a lot of people, they say, I don't want to do that. And they get into life, and because they're not prepared with that stretch, they didn't lean into it, they pull a muscle, which is their life falling apart. And I step back and I'm out for a month trying to figure out, what do I do with myself? And so when I have architected and created that identity of what I want to go to, my job is going and say, what are those moments that are going to stretch you? And then when you hit those as a coach, like, how do I make you lean into them and hold it for a 10 count, not get out at 2 count? And when you can learn to do that and you feel and you're aware of it in the moments, you'll find that when you've stretched yourself to handle those things, when the opportunity comes up and you can go faster, you're prepared for it.
So let me break that down, because what came up for me, for example, is as you were talking, I was thinking, sometimes like I'll just use an example I think most people can relate to. So like I'll watch The Rock's Instagram, right? And guys just start to work out. I mean, he's drenched in sweat. He's the same height as I am, 6'4", but he's 277 pounds, so 77 more pounds of muscle. And I'm like, man, I got to start getting up at 4 a.m. and knocking out these workouts like a rock, But a couple mornings come by and you don't hit that 4 a.m. And it's like, if you don't keep that promise to yourself, it's kind of like what you're talking about. It's like almost like it's maybe not an acute injury where I'm sidelined for a month, but I feel like there's like the integrity of making commitments to yourself. And starting by making small, at least from my point of view, small commitments, right? So like,
it's huge.
And I don't know if you have a thought around this, but like segments.
I have a framework around this.
There's a Navy SEAL, and he talked about actually Eric Wrighton's his name. He talks about actually the BUDS training, right? Which is theoretically, as I understand it, the hardest physical
Navy
training,
SEALs,
or of the hardest. And he said what's interesting is that most Navy SEALs don't quit during the most arduous physical challenges. So it's not when they're getting slapped by freezing cold water after carrying a log of like 500 pounds above their head. It's actually, he said, at sunset, when after a day of work, you're looking out and the sun is setting and the instructors say, that was just day one. You got 6 more days. And it's that projection into the future. And the suffering that lives in your mind as a mindset in the projection of that. And he said that's actually when the greatest number of people quit, because they couldn't live into the identity. They couldn't live into the construct of what that would look like. They just saw the suffering of it, right? Whereas the people that thrived and survived were the ones that broke it down into, I'm only focusing on the next 10 minutes. Like I'm gonna crush the next 10 minutes. And I haven't affected this in my own life, but I know when I start to get overwhelmed in that identity, like I know what identity I want to live into, but where I fail oftentimes is like, right, I got to be 277 The Rock 4 a.m.,
Well, what's interesting.
You don't get there tomorrow,
No, you don't. It is it's actually a part of your brain that'll tell you why you don't. So part of it is I can't project myself there, but also, like you said, there's sacrifice that goes along with what that takes to go to that next tier. And a lot of people don't see themselves there. There's a study done by UCLA, and like they did some neuroscience studies, and they asked people, hey, who are you? Like, how much do you care about yourself? And a part of their brain lit up that was like, this is who I am. And then they said, okay, they talk about someone you love, a loved one. You have this like loved one part of your brain. And they give you a picture of someone you don't know or something else, and like stranger lights up. So if you ask, like, who am I willing to like take a bullet for or go through that BUDS training for? Person that I know I am, loved one. What's crazy, if they ask you to talk about or think about your future self, stranger lights up. Interesting, right? So what happens is if I don't see myself in that future in some way, if I haven't created and done the work to see myself there, I'm not going to sacrifice for somebody I don't know. Stranger lights up. So for a lot of us, we're going through life, we don't see ourselves there genuinely. There's no emotional attachment. There's no like physical, like I didn't write it down. I didn't paint a picture of it. So it's like, I don't see that. Why am I going to go to work for that? Why am I going to not eat this donut right now? I don't know about that guy with six-pack abs. You know, like I'm going to eat this donut now. And we live like that and don't even know we're doing it most of the time.
Wow. So what do you see? How do you shift that part of the brain that sees this as stranger? How does this move over here? Like how does this side where it's like stranger, I don't see it, move into like that part of your brain where it's like, you know,
who I am.
Another extreme example, like maybe Viktor Frankl, right? Like where like he search for meaning, I can persist through, you know, almost any circumstance because this is who I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the same things of like the why, right? Like I know why I'm doing this. You can still see why I'm doing it, but a lot of it you can actually write out. Like that's what people do, like future pacing, deathbed statement, life statement, mission statement. What have you accomplished? Because now you're forced to see it. I actually like that app where you can age yourself. You see that one where you can age yourself? Everybody did for like a good like 2 days and disappeared. Totally. Print that bad boy up, put it on your piece of paper. Like this is why I'm saving money this month. You know, this person right here is who I'm doing these things for. That's one part of it. But honestly, that's why I said to architect, because whenever you architect, you like think about what architects do. They get this idea in their head, or they hear information, and they create something from scratch on paper that someone then goes later on and builds. But the person can't build it if they can't see it. Yeah. So the architect has to go in and say, what kind of beliefs do I want to have? Because there's really like a Venn diagram: beliefs, thoughts, actions. Where beliefs and thoughts overlap, you end up having your mindset. If I have strong beliefs and weak thoughts, I have weak mindset, right? Then where my thoughts and my actions overlap is my habits. If I think I should do it and I don't do it, my habits suck, right? And then you have, when you talked about that character and pride, if I believe I'm supposed to do something and I don't do it, I lose the chip on my shoulder. I didn't get up at 4 a.m. The chip gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I don't fight for someone I don't know or love. If I feel worse about this person here, why am I going to show up for that person at 4 in the morning, right? So what happens is when you look at that conceptual aspect of it, I can architect like what kind of beliefs does this person have? What kind of thoughts are they running all day in affirmations? What kind of mindset are they showing up with? What kind of habits do they have? And if I do that, what kind of character and chip do they get that I can build over time? And then the more I can architect that thing and then build it, the more I show up as like, you know what? This Anthony today isn't letting Anthony from yesterday down because he did this work. This is who he is. So also this Anthony here is going to show up because I know who I am. I'm going to keep pushing to the future. So I'm always in this consistent bubble with a lot of people of like, look, you did all this, so you can't let that stuff be for nothing. And on top of that, we've already architected who you're supposed to be, who you're going towards. And so there's actually a process that we go through as we design the identity, develop a plan around it, and then deploy it. And the deploy part's big because it helps us do what you're talking about. When I've deployed, like if a military guy, I deploy, I go out to battle, I come back. And what do? As soon as I come back from battle, debrief.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, hey, how did it go? Most people come back from life, they get their teeth kicked in, and they go, oh, I don't want to do that again, they run away. But the thing is right in that moment when you have all the information fresh of what went wrong. So like, okay, come back, debrief what just took place. Let's redesign the actions that need to be done possibly, redevelop a plan, redeploy, let's keep this ball going. And the more you keep doing it, it's like you keep going back out with a plan and seeing why you did it, what the reason is. And here's the thing. We're talking about this process. Before you know it, you've consistently been creating. And now because you created, like this is now who you come out the back and you're like, yeah, I don't know when, but I became a badass somewhere. Like I'm dope. Like that's the process that goes through it all. And once you've understood the stages and how to do that and what the actions are that are unique to you, we always talk about like the hero's journey. But I love Russell Brunson talks about the hero's 2 journeys. There's always the achievement and transformation. Unfortunately, for some people, they think you have to do a transformation only before you can actually get the achievements. And I believe there's a definite duality to how this works. But I like the idea of like, well, in order for me to transform, actions have to be done. Like actions would end suffering. Doing something ends this pain, this place I'm at. I can create more, do more. And so what happens is, why not make those actions that are ones that would actually turn into an achievement? So why can't I simultaneously be taking an action that would achieve something later on? And then when I get there, I've also transformed at the same time. And so like I'm always building those kind of things into how I have people create stuff. Whether it's good mom, good dad, good husband, good business owner, whatever it might be. But if you structure those things like the right way, dude, amazing things happen. And then you've actually created this identity that now you protect with your action, because that's really the end goal. The end goal is to realize that what we're trying to do is create an identity that's so strong that it has like this ego armor, like a genuine armor around you, to where what happens is if somebody throws a spear of negativity or like, something to degrade you at you, it bounces off the armor. Because at the end of the day, like, this is who I am. And not only does it like bounce off, but I show up for that person and battle to keep that identity in check. So like for me, I had a horrible big ego from the NFL when I got done. A lot of guys do, let's be honest, a lot of guys do. But people think it's all bad when the reality is, well, my ego forced me to catch workouts, to build my body, to stay healthy, to do treatment, to eat, to read my playbook. That ego was the same one doing the actions to keep me great as it was at times keep me from great. But everybody has an ego, and it's not always bad.
Now, I actually find that quite refreshing to think about. And it's interesting. I was actually just talking to Tony Gonzalez, another NFL player, about the notion of the second mountain, right? Because I think, and this goes kind of to the core theme, like many of us in our identities go through, some of us have parts of our identity, as you exemplified sort of in your childhood, that are quite, that can be associated, if you will, with trauma, right? That are almost like, I want to put that in the closet and not think of it. Oftentimes that doesn't fix it, but you unfortunately have a very healthy relationship to it. Other people, there's aspects of our identity where we're like, oh man, I crush it, right? Like a successful NFL career. You're like, oh man, I'm on the top of the mountain. But
Sounds good.
Equal challenges also in recreating a new identity
from
both a place of challenge and after a huge success, right? It's like, how many people have successful sophomore albums? How many rock stars? Not that many, right? Because it's like you put out the first album and it crushes, and you're scared to make the second one, right? Because you're like, what if it fails? Like you get addicted. But as a friend of mine once said, it's like you're only as good as your last most recent kind of success. And if you don't
only as good as your last game.
If you don't keep creating, then all of a sudden you're kind of a has-been. So I wanted to tap into that notion of the second mountain, if you will, right? More of a metaphor, but you move from NFL, which at least in the United States, around the religion of football, which is seen almost as a religion, is a heck of an identity, right? Especially given where you came from. You could almost say like you went from one of the lower lows, like Dead Sea Low, to Everest High in terms of like identity metaphors. And then you were forced to
drop,
recreate yourself anew again. What did you use? What mindsets, egos, trainings that did you find were integral to you recreating yourself after the NFL?
To be honest, man, I broke my life when I first got out. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was smooth. It was everything but smooth. Like, to be honest, man, I came home, and not only have I now lost the identity of a football player, I've come home. I have 2 more kids, and so at this time, I got my wife. I'm at the gym, so I built the gym also. So like, I got to find a way to get my identity back. I got to be that guy again. So I built this gym, and I didn't know what I was doing, man. Like, I had no gym membership before this. I didn't have a business plan. I just put some money into it. 9 months in, I'm looking at bankruptcy. Like, I'm looking at being evicted. I couldn't pay the bills because I had this ego of like, I know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything I was doing, man. And so neglecting my wife, neglecting my health, neglecting my kids, the business was falling apart. Football was gone. Everything that made Anthony was done. And then my wife has an affair, man. She runs off with some dude damn near and broke me, literally broke me. And I sat in this fog. And a lot of people sit in these fogs, man. If you ever had this hardship happen, you get to this point where you're like, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, you just seriously. And I look at us as human beings more like computers than anything else. Like, the identity work I do is a perfect metaphor for a sense of like, we're computers. And a lot of us have this hardware every day we get up with, but then the software is from like, Windows 98. Like, it's so old. We're operating from, childhood trauma that we haven't addressed or unpacked. We're operating from weird situations that happen in relationships, perspective we told ourselves because we failed at something that anchored us to say, this is who I am. And we're running these poor programs. And what happens is, like a computer, like, you'll have this thing pop up that says, hey, you want to update? And we say, no, I ain't got time for that. And so I don't update the computer. I snooze it, right? And then, 24 hours goes by. You want to update? No, I don't want it. And then eventually the computer starts bogging down. The programs stop working. Eventually start getting a spinning wheel of death. You got to open in safe mode without some of the programs. And it's like, dude, I gotta update this computer. And you got to go through the pain of, okay, hit update, sit back and wait. It takes forever to do it. And then eventually the computer comes back, updated, and now it runs smooth. Now, us as computers, this is kind of what I did in life, is you get to this point where it's like, well, the updates are someone telling you like, hey, you're not being the best husband, not being the best father. Your business isn't working very well. You got to figure out how to take care of your health. Like, what's going on? You keep, I got this. And then eventually the programs, your relationships, your health, your career, finances, your education, your sense of self, the programs, they start slowing down, man. Then you get that spinning wheel of death. You try to open in safe mode, right? Safe mode is like cut the programs out, cut myself off, silo in, drink some beer, smoke some weed, hang with some chicks, right? That's almost sort of safe mode it. But then some of the programs don't work. You start alienating yourself. It's not until you move yourself back and say, you know what, I'm going to take the time to let this update. That for me was like, I almost took my life, man. I drove off one night like, I'm done with this. And I came back, and it was a duality of like me snapping out of that place, getting to a point where I found some purpose for the craziness of my life, which, like, you know, I've had these things happen. Other people have seen how'd your marriage fall apart, man? Like, how come you fell out of shape? What does NFL football player get a gut for? Like, dude, how come your business has never been able to you know, get to the point of like not freaking out every 2 weeks of how I'm going to pay rent and payroll? Like, how did you get here, Ant? And the more answers I got, the more updates I made, the more information I figured out. I was having conversations with people, fixing relationships. I went and talked to the guy and kind of, you know, figured out the conversation of like the guy that had an affair with my wife. Like, to this point where now today I could nod my head at him, and like, not so much I wouldn't call it respect, but like we navigated that, you know, like, so I did a lot of these updates, and it allowed me to get to a point where now my computer runs smooth. And when updates come in, because my wife has them for me all the time, as do my kids and business, you know, when the system updating my identity, which is the same thing other people have to do, but in their own specific ways.
Yeah. Well, I think it's almost a perfect analogy for the times we're in, right? Like, it's interesting. I was reflecting yesterday, and I haven't gone through a marriage and that, but I had a partner who I moved across the country to be with, who wound up cheating on me. And so I really relate to what you were sharing. And I went into a hole. I went into a black hole. I was, you know, if you looked at my recycling bin of beers at the time, I mean, it was, I went into like that, you know, whatever you were calling that silo. I've been there. And actually, fortunately, my father showed up for me. And that's actually when I started doing some really deep transformational men's work. And, you know, frankly, I did a lot of the hard work, a lot of the confrontation, a lot of those pieces. And it saw a sea change in my life. And sometimes when things get challenging, like right now, and we're kind of pulled south because we're in this kind of epidemic. I know a lot of people out there listening are in a similar circumstance. There's the challenge of it, but there's also this opportunity, right? We're all in a forced reboot, you know? And one of the things I was thinking about yesterday, I was actually talking to our mutual friend, Craig, and I was like, you know, if this thing ended tomorrow, I'd be so grateful, obviously, for the lives, for people having their livelihoods back. But there was a piece of me that was actually like, I actually got more work to be done. Like, and he said the same thing. He was like, you know,
talked to my wife about it last night.
All those distractions, you know, like I got no excuse right now on the book. I've been wanting to write a book for years. There is it's like looking straight in the mirror. And I think for many of us, that is the case, right? Like, no, not to belittle in any way the challenges. And I have my folks fortunate in 6 feet of another human for almost 2 weeks now, which I don't know how that's going to look, you know, months from now. But needless to say, I think there is gold in update, as you articulately put it. For those listening, what are some of the ways, because obviously you went from that place where you did that update, it sounds like you got really in touch with your integrity and a new sense of identity, or tapped back into the old identity that had made you successful and kind of retooled
parts of it.
But Like, you don't need to be
Yeah.
paying
Get rid
Xbox.
of it.
You don't need the extra Netflix. You know, like,
Yeah.
and you know, and I think a lot of people right now are struggling or have fears. For example, obviously there's a health challenge.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're a financial planner or anything like that. But if you were to give advice based on this mindset of like the identity people and the mindset people can have as they look
Yeah.
at, let's call it a new land.
This perception of I'll make it back at some point in time. I'll figure it out. And you can't do that, because at the end of the day, that's the thing that you can see now put some people in some precarious positions. Lifestyle, like, because you could have someone that's $1 million that lives in California is different than $1 million that lives in the Philippines. Wait, you know what I'm saying? Like it's vast. And so one thing I would look at is, how much money do you really need to live the life you want to live? Because what's different now is, like, you don't need money right now to be flashy. I don't need to buy Jordans. I can't go outside. I don't need rims on my car because no one's gonna see it. Nobody's driving. You know what I mean? Like, there's legit things you don't need. So if you realize that, like, I got to a point of like, I don't care to have anything extra on my car because I don't even get to see it when I'm driving. Then reinvest my money in later on that'll actually benefit me, or not invest it at all. It's okay to have money in your bank, people. Like, it's okay to have it sit there. That those shoes look nice.
Right, where it's like, I love that app because you actually look and it shows you your impermanence.
Who
And
you
this
are.
coin that I hold in my hand, which I keep literally next to me every day, was one again to sort of bring it full. Thinking back, and I was like, okay, that was my life well lived. Not
Yeah.
that obviously finance and resources aren't important, you know, and right now I think a lot of people have been kind of forced down the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's real talk. However, I do think there is a reset to what you're saying, like an update where it's like, you know, most people in articulating the 5 greatest regrets of the dying, very, very few of those are around anything related to material wealth. In fact,
Never.
most of it is like, no one's like, man, I'm glad I got that Lambo in the driveway. I lived the life that I was capable of, not the life that other people told me I needed to live, and that I was, you know, that I was kind of unrelenting in choosing the life
Pursuing,
which many people don't. So in the spirit of identity and this moment, which I think if we choose to see it as beautiful, which I'm choosing to see it as beautiful,
as am I.
I just did a post. You know, it's kind of your frame, but in that time, you know, I'm like, okay, my thing I'm focusing on now is the book and this podcast. I want to connect with the most inspiring minds I can. Doesn't cost me anything. I mean, the irony is I literally did spend thousands and thousands of dollars on gear, and I'm now literally using Skype and a headphones. So the joke's on me. But it's still beautiful because I can still connect to folks like you and also connect to myself, right, through the book.
Yeah.
What do you do?
See at the top's the camera, right? But in the tripod of life, the C is what you'll create in your life. The income, the career, the money, the impact, all that stuff. But the legs are different, right? It's the tools and techniques, which we're talking about. It's the tools, the camera, the Skype, all these different things. The technique is going to be the strategy behind it, right? I buy this course, this program, this book. I always look at it as like, I like to be the dialed in technician, because the technician's the third piece. It's the one using the tools and techniques. And what I look at is like, I'm tucked away and I don't even know what to work on, but my gut tells me work on the things you've been trying to work on that haven't found time. So like copywriting, working on some design stuff, language stuff. I have been taking a speed reading course. Like, I'm realize as we come out of this, which we will come out of this, I want to be the guy that's got the technician so dialed in that even without those exact same tools that person has, they could have spent more money and more time and whatever it is. As a technician, I'll thrive more than you will. Because if you think about it, the tools and techniques were designed by a technician. I went and learned this thing. I created this software platform or program that you get to use, like Russell has ClickFunnels, right? My 7 steps or whatever. And that's all good and well, but somebody went out, blazed a trail, figured out, came back, said, here, do this. Everybody else is trying to buy that thing without working on a technician. It's like they got this brand new, you know, hammer tool thing with a great manual, but their newborn baby's using it. And so I want to dial this guy into where you can give me half of what those people have, but I'll do double what they've done.
I love that. The technician. I think that's.
Yeah, I like him. I like him.
Yeah. Because I don't know if anyone's read that book, Can't Hurt Me, but it was one of my favorites of last year. But I love where he was, and again, it goes to that piece of identity. For him, he was a Navy SEAL, so he was running for his brothers, and he had to run a 100-mile race. So there's so many great lessons in that book. But to run that race, he found out he had to run 100 miles in 2 days, and he had never run a 100-mile race. And literally, he bought a pack of Ritz crackers and duct tape and ran the 100 miles, broke both of his legs, taped them up, and kept running. And to me, it was like, no technology, unique IP as it relates to a lot of what you've referenced. What are some of the greater insights? And obviously, people, I highly recommend that people delve deeply obviously are going through an identity shift. And a
Yeah,
lot of what you, I think,
heavily.
teach people is how to turn, I call it shit into compost, but,
Yeah.
you know, for gardens.
We really have 6 different levels of it, and the top is abject, which is the end of the world. Nothing can be fixed, and we put too many things up there. Like we say, like my relationship fell apart. I'm unlovable. I lost my job. I'm never to get employed again. Like, and the emotion just skyrocket. And the problem is when I put it that high, I learn nothing from it. There's no reason to. It's not like, look, I hate you. This burrito's delicious. I hate myself. Like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. Then below that, you have what's called a version failure. This version broke. But it's okay. I got used to it, right? For me in life, a lot of what I do is like I predict I'm going to fail because I don't know what to do with this. Perfectionists, they hate this because, like, well, I got to be perfect. They never put it out. When the reality is, I know everything I put out is not perfect because just my brain helps create it, but it's not for me typically. I need to put it out, have people tell me where the holes are at, then I can make it better. You can be the person that can push your pride to the side, can actually swallow like a little bit of your ego and step into new space and do something by giving yourself permission to be better. Yeah.
But I think there is a benefit in having teammates and a coach in terms of sometimes in not most enlightened way, but they point out your weak spots, right? So
Yep.
in that iOS upgrade.
Yeah, you got to have, like, I look at, like you said, coach. I like the idea of the coach, because when I looked at me as an athlete, right, when I'm on the field, I can see what's right in front of me. Someone that says, hey, come to the sideline real quick. You got to do this. Go back out and do that. And then here's what happens. A lot of people go, oh, but that's not me. So it's wheel. They go in and they just kind of like, oh, I don't know if it's me. I don't know if I can do that. And so we take half-hearted actions, have half-hearted outcomes. We have an environment and just keeps on going in place. So what I do is I say, look, you got to go in and be what's field, and you sit back in the sideline and say, oh, we're going to see what they do. And here's what happens. When that person goes out in the field and they just go blow up the wedge, well, it's that separate. And the more you do it, little by little, you've done this thing. And now it goes from, like, it was a 10 of pain, but you came back, you did it again, it was a 9 of pain. And you came back and it was an 8.